Nick Chafuku, and who is also from PNNL, and our IAEA colleague, Horst Munken Fernandez. And as we get underway, I just want to thank our PNNL colleagues, Kelly McIntosh and Melissa Perdue. They've helped us organize and run today's seminar. The seminar is being recorded, and this recording is going to be made available on both the RemPlex and Environet websites. We have a couple of short presentations that'll be shared, and we'll put those slides up on those websites as well. And I just want to ask that everybody please mute your microphone during the presentations. Today's seminar is jointly hosted by RemPlex, which is Pacific Northwest National Laboratory Center for the Remediation of Complex Sites. It's a forum that we operate to bring people together in the topics related to environmental remediation. And we're co-hosting this with IAEA's Environet, which is the Network of Environmental Remediation and Norm Management. And it is a similar forum with a very international focus that's organized and operated by IAEA. And PNNL and IAEA collaborate on a number of initiatives to help expand the value and the impact of our respective networks. And today's seminar is one of those collaborative offerings. Today, we are hosting a panel discussion of the challenges related to workforce development in the environmental remediation field. Access to a trained workforce is one of the biggest challenges that face implementation of technically sound and appropriate and cost-effective remediation projects. And even it's an international problem. Even in countries and sectors that have robust remediation support infrastructure, there are challenges related to workforce development. So we've assembled a group of panelists today that are going to draw upon their personal and organizational experiences and help us identify what those challenges are, describe them, define them, think about their root causes, and then begin to explore approaches that are already in use to address workforce development challenges or that could be leveraged and developed and implemented in broader use. Horst, before we go into introducing our panelists, would you like to make a few remarks?
Yes, thank you very much, Karen. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, even good evening for those who are with us. It's a great pleasure in co-moderating this webinar on this very important topic of workforce development in environmental remediation field. And I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all participants. Complementing what Karen just said, I would like to start by saying that environmental remediation workforce is really crucial for addressing sites affected by activities that were not developed in accordance with current regulatory framework or were eventually affected by incidents involving the release of radioactive materials. So environmental remediation is aimed at ensuring public health and well-being in line, for example, with the United States nation's Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the SDGs. I particularly would like to propose that in addition to these objectives, remediation is also about turning legacy into assets, something that brings the concept of circularity to our conversation. So this requires a specialized workforce to tackle contaminated sites, also to manage hazardous waste and implement sustainable practices, making it essential for environmental protection and compliance with regulations. I would say that joining the environmental remediation field involves a combination of education skills and experience, starting by obtaining a relevant degree in environmental science disciplines, engineering, or any other related field. And I would include in this moment the social sciences for obvious reasons. Actually, environmental remediation is indeed a multidisciplinary activity, something that makes it such an exciting and at the same time challenging field of work. Experience and practical experience can be gained through internships or entry-level positions. And these are crucial steps, and I will hear about some of the IAEA programs in this regard. With that said, Karen, I hope that all participants of this webinar will enjoy the discussions and find them useful. Also, I would like to mention one important thing, that many of the points that will be raised in this webinar are not only restricted to environmental remediation, but relates also to many other work areas in the nuclear field. So, Karen, I give the floor back to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Horst. And I'm showing now a screen that has all of our panelists, and I'll go through a quick introduction of each of our panelists, and then we'll let them give some opening remarks, and then we'll go into our discussion session. And once we get into the discussion session, please feel free to ask us questions, share comments in the chat, and we'll integrate those into the discussion that we're queuing up. So I'll introduce our panelists first, and Jania McKinley is an engineer with the DOE's Environmental Management's Technology Operations Office. Veronica Dickerson is an environmental protection specialist with the U.S. Department of the Interior, Office of Environmental Policy and Compliance. Dave Becker is a geologist with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Environmental and Munitions Center of Expertise, and he's also an adjunct professor of geology at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Maria de Lourdes Denis is an associate professor at the Mining Engineering Department of the Engineering Faculty of the University of Porto in Portugal, and she is the scientific coordinator of the university's Center for Natural Resources and Environment. Maria Nadanova is a project manager for the IAEA Marie Sklodowska-Curie Fellowship Program, and Maria is very kindly stepping in on behalf of her colleague Gloria Kwong, who was originally announced to be part of the panel discussion today, but is unable to join us. Thank you, Maria. And then Evangelina Shreve is the Chief Diversity Officer and the Director of STEM Education at PNNL. I'm going to stop sharing my slides, and I'm going to allow each of our panelists to make a few opening remarks, and we'll start with you, Jania.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here on the panel today. Really excited to talk about what the Department of Energy is doing in the area of workforce development and workforce management. And so with that, I'll share my screen here while I introduce myself. So in the Technology Operations Office for DOE, amongst other duties, one of the programs I'm able to manage and proudly manage is our EM Minority Serving Institution Partnership Program. I'm sorry, let me share my screen. Didn't hit share. Hopefully y'all can see that.
Now we can. Yep.
All right, great. Thank you. And so I really wanted to bring this page up here because I think it gives a good perspective of the program in the 7 components of the program for which we manage. And so in addition to EMMSIPP, I'll preface that we also have other programs, cooperative agreements with institutions such as FIU, Florida International University, where they do research to support our mission. But today I'll be speaking mainly on the EMMSIPP. And so this program is unique in that it takes in account our need to build a diverse future workforce. And it takes that workforce to take the next step towards completing our EM mission. And so our program is made up of the 7 components that you see listed here, and they offer a wide range of opportunities for students and participants at MSIs across our country. And so from competitive research grants to hands-on internships, experiences for graduate students, it's a holistic strategy that fosters a pipeline of talent by nurturing our students' successes through scholarships, Horst mentioned internships. And so I get excited because we have the capabilities to support all of these areas, from postdoctoral research to scholarships and internships and field study. So our 7 components here comprise of grants, and these are our numbers for FY23. We're funded at approximately $50 million over the past few years through direct funding from Congress. And so our grants award financial assistance to MSIs for research projects that support EM's cleanup mission. Our competitive research awards, we provide competitive funding to MSIs to conduct research projects that are aligned with our cleanup needs. We also have a graduate fellowship program that provides year-long paid fellowships for our MSI graduate students in STEM to gain that specialized training and experience relevant to our cleanup mission. We also have a new program. It's called STARS, and it's Success Through Academic Research Scholarship. And so that program offers scholarships and paid summer internships to MSI students in STEM fields focused on EM-related cleanup opportunities and challenges. And we're so excited because it's a direct pipeline filler in that these participants will come and work for us directly. Postdoctoral research program is another opportunity where we provide fixed-term research positions at national laboratories for postdoctoral researchers focused on our EM challenges. We have our internship program, which offer undergraduate MSI students a chance to gain hands-on experience and internships with us at our sites and national laboratories. And last but not least, we have an environmental science field station program, which is very unique in that it offers hands-on experience via internships to students as well as course credits and research opportunities for our participants. So I just wanted to kind of give that view of our program in totality. And I thank you again for having me today. Looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Thank you, Jania. Veronica, you're up next.
Good morning, everybody. Or as Forrest said, afternoon or evening. I too appreciate very much being able to be here today to speak to all of you on an issue that is close to all of our hearts. As Karen said, I work as an environmental protection specialist within the Department of Interior, Office of the Secretary, in the Division of Environmental Policy and Compliance. Prior to that, I worked for the National Park Service for 11 years, and my current position with DOI, I'm kind of considered the department's Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act, or CERCLA, technical expert. So anytime any bureaus, so the way the Department of Interior is set up, we have a number of bureaus underneath us: National Park Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Reclamation, USGS, and a number of others. So anytime a bureau has a very complex site that comes up, generally they'll reach out and I can provide technical support to them in the form of designing sampling and analysis plans, assisting with site investigations. And it spans such a vast array of contaminants. So not only your metals, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, but also I work a lot in sites that have abandoned uranium mines and things of that sort, as well as formerly used defense sites. So when you look at the Department of Interior and the Federal Land Management as a whole, sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around that we would have some of these areas we consider to be so pristine as having some high levels of contamination that need to be addressed. One of the sites in particular, I'm sure most folks have seen the Aaron Brockovich movie, the Hinckley with the chromium plume. And I work on the sister site to that, which is in Topak, Arizona, spanning 2 states, 3 federal land managers, and 11 tribes. So there too, I have a very complex groundwater plume that we're trying to keep from getting into the Colorado River. So a lot of the barriers that I run up against is having that next generation trained to come in and help, not just through contractors, but through jobs, whether it's with any of the federal land managers or even our office. So we run into a barrier by having key staff that we need to be able to continue to perform this work. So I'm really happy to be here today. I hope you all get a lot out of the conversation that we're going to have. And thank you for having me.
Veronica. Dave Becker, your turn.
Okay, thank you very much. And hello to everybody. I am Dave Becker. I'm a geologist, as Karen said, with the Army Corps of Engineers. I've been in my current role with the Environmental and Munitions Center of Expertise since 1991, and with the Corps since the early 80s. So I've got over 40 years in with the federal government and have spent essentially my entire career working on environmental remediation type projects, which has been just a tremendous amount of fun. Um, so I'm old. I actually retired from full-time work at the end of 2021, and I now work part-time, doing basically the same thing, but with more of an added focus of being a mentor for some of our young professionals. And so that kind of factors into my interest in workforce development. Um, my responsibilities are to prepare guidance, both internal to the Corps and collaborative guidance prepared in collaboration with agencies like Pacific Northwest National Lab and the Interstate Technology and Regulatory Council. I also do internal training for our professionals on environmental remediation, both remediation and characterization type work. I certainly try to be a mentor, as I mentioned. I also do quality assurance reviews on documents related to environmental restoration prepared by our districts and their contractors throughout the country. So I get a chance to see a tremendous amount of stuff. So that's one side. The other side, as Karen said, is I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, where I teach geology courses. Matter of fact, I have taught or I'm teaching courses like environmental geology, hydrogeology, geophysics, and engineering geology. And where it's appropriate, I try to weave in some of the environmental remediation type topics to prepare people for their profession out there. And I've been teaching for about 25 years now and find it very rewarding. The coolest thing is that a lot of my former students now work for my agency. And actually, one of my coworkers is a former student, which is very, very fulfilling for me. So looking at it from both sides, both from a hiring agency and, on the academic side, preparing young professionals, very interested in this. I certainly was one of, a big cadre of mostly young people that were hired in the 1980s and early 1990s to work environmental type projects, and they're retiring in droves. Like I say, I partially retired myself, and being replaced by a lot of younger folks. And it's become very challenging to hire folks, particularly in the environmental and chemical engineering side. Earth science majors are maybe a little bit more plentiful, but they have probably a little bit more of a learning curve to get up to speed in terms of their practice once they're hired. So, development is very important. So I'm very interested as an instructor, as a professor, in trying to prepare students for the real world, for the work world, not just giving them facts and concepts, but to teach them how to apply it. And so I have capstone projects where I can in my classes to try to bring that knowledge together, make them apply it and think about it. I think that's very important. I'm also a big proponent in my current job with the Corps on the training, and I've really pushed to develop a lot of the internal training to develop our younger people that have been coming in and replacing us old timers. So I'm very interested in this. I'm very excited about the collaboration prospects. Particularly like to see more of a bridge between the academic and the industry in order to have the industry tell the academics what they need from their new hires, and then also what industry can offer in the way of opportunities, internships, field trips, all those kind of things for the students. So anyway, I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. And Jania and Veronica and Dave have all been able to speak from the perspective, and they'll bring this into the discussion, the perspective of the federal agencies who are responsible for a lot of the remediation work in the U.S. And Dave, you've actually then bridged it by bringing us into sort of the pipeline at the start, where we were bringing in students into these fields. And so, keeping with that theme, Maria de Lourdes, I'll let you speak a little bit about your perspective as a university educator.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for having me. And good afternoon or good morning, everyone. As Karen mentioned, I'm a professor at the university at the Faculty of Engineering, and one of my duties is to develop and implement teaching programs, the bachelor, master, and also PhD programs. So I would like to introduce you to this program. Just a second. I have a few slides. Okay.
Good.
Okay. So talking about workforce development, I'm presenting this project, the Minder project, which is a joint master on the Commission and Environmental Remediation, developed under the Erasmus program and funded by the European Commission. And this program was recognizing that training and building capacity in environmental remediation topics are very complex and demands several disciplines, like Horst mentioned. It's multidisciplinary field. And it also requires effective project planning and also management skills. So this program is coordinated by the University of Porto, together with the Institute of Radiation Protection and Dosimetry from Brazil, the Norwegian University of Life Science in Norway, and University of Hasselt in Belgium, together in collaboration with the SEK and the Czech Technical University in Prague. The program has also the collaboration of the figure of associated partners from industry, from other universities, international organizations, and also research laboratories. And the role of these partners is very important because they will provide access to world-class infrastructure for research and development and opportunities for the students to be integrated into the labor market or to continue their studies for a PhD program, for instance. This program is divided in 4 semesters, spanning into 2 years. We have 2 semesters dedicated to common topics for the Commission and environmental remediation. And then in the 3rd semester, or the 1st semester of the 2nd year, there are 2 tracks students can choose between the environmental remediation track or the decommissioning. And I will leave you all the contacts from this project if anyone is interested in having more detailed information. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I've just put the link from your slide into the chat.
Thank you.
And it's an exciting program that I hope we can talk a little bit more about in our discussion session. It's open to students from around the world, and I think it's a unique opportunity for individuals to get a real basis in how to manage and execute successful decommissioning and remediation projects. So thank you, Maria. And now Maria Nadanova from the IAEA, if you'd like to speak, please.
Thank you, Karen, and good hello to everyone. I'm glad to be here to present very quickly the highlights of the 2 flagship initiatives which the IAEA started recently. And they all aim at supporting a more inclusive and diverse workforce in the nuclear field. So I'll share the screen now. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yep.
And if you want to go in presentation mode, if you can. It's okay if you can't. You can.
Did it work? No.
No, not yet.
Now?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm not very familiar with Zoom.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
No, I'll go quickly. So, but do you see the first slide? Yeah, right.
Yes.
So the 2 initiatives, one starts in 2020, is the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship Program, is to encourage young women to pursue a career in the nuclear field, and thus help close the persistent gender gap. So I will talk about what it consists of. The second program, which was launched very recently last year, is the Liz Meitner program, It's to provide selected female professionals with opportunity to advance technical and soft skills in the nuclear sector through visiting professional program. So the first program aims at attracting and building a pipeline of female professionals in the nuclear field, and the second program is complementary. It's focused on retention and career development. So I'll start with the first one. Just briefly, again, what it consists mainly of two parts, the scholarship and the internship part. It covers tuition cost and cost of living up to a threshold of 20,000 for each. And we also have the internship component of the program, which we believe is a very beneficial. It provides hands-on experience to individuals who wish to pursue an internship facilitated by the IAEA, and it's for up to 12 months, and it's paid €1,000 a month for the duration of the internships. And we try to place interns both at the IAEA headquarters, at the labs, which we have here in Seibersdorf in Austria and Monaco, as well as external organization. And they can be IAEA collaborating centers, private companies, universities, other partner organization, labs, and so on. So the third component is that these selected recipients, we give them the opportunity to participate in technical events, to present their thesis, their publications, if they have any, to poster discussions, panel discussion, any of those. They can also participate in specialized trainings, and we also gather them in a MSCFP student and alumni group where they can exchange information, share trips, experiences, vacancies, and so on. So quickly highlights of how many we have. So in the first 4 applications, in the first 4 years, we received more than 2,200 applications, and we selected 560 female students. It's a very diverse pool. They represent 121 nationalities, and they're studying in 72 countries. We also look at the diversity in terms of fields of study. So the 2 large pools are in the nuclear power, nuclear energy, as well as the nuclear science and applications. You can see there around more than 70% of those. But we do have students in nuclear safety, nuclear security, non-proliferation, and few in nuclear law. So we cover the whole spectrum of nuclear. Again, impact in numbers. We can see the distribution around the world. Of course, the largest number of selected students come from Asia, Africa, followed by Europe, Latin America, North America, and Oceania. And there is a large emphasis also on developing member states. Here you can see the distribution on that
Maria,
as well. Yes.
Maria, excuse me, the slides are not advancing on the shared screens. So it may, I don't want to derail your progress because we need to move along to, we'll need to move along to our other speakers here. So,
okay, sorry. Just very quickly, then I will move to the second program. The Liz Meitner, we organize cohorts of up to 15 women professionals in their mid-career, early to mid-career, to visit various facilities in a host country, and it's on a specific topic that we gather these cohorts. So far, we had 3 of those visiting programs, 2 in the United States of America, sponsored by the DOE, and 1 in the Republic of Korea. And we have several more in the pipelines, and these will cover again all areas of nuclear field to the extent possible, and up to the host countries who wish to host them. So that's a brief overview. Thank you that's all from my side at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I do hope we can hear more. I'm really interested in knowing a little bit more about the Lisa Meitner program in terms of the cohorts you have been able to host. So thank you very much. And turning to Evangelina.
Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Karen. I'm Evangelina Gonstrave, and most of my professional career has been in education and workforce development opportunities and developing those programs to help create those opportunities. In my current role at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory as Director of STEM Education and Workforce Development, we host approximately, this year is a record year, we've been averaging about 1,600 student interns everywhere from high school to undergraduate to graduate to postgraduate. This year in fiscal year 24, we'll have over 1,700 leads that we have provided internship experiences to. What I hope to share with you today is our primary focus is two capability areas in providing those experiences to students. One is in STEM outreach, and that's really creating experiences and awarenesses about STEM careers and the needed careers in technical areas like the remediation area. And then the second area is workforce development, where we work with many collaborators, our federal sponsors, our higher education partners, our K-12 partners, and our nonprofit community collaborators who are interested in helping develop the future workforce, and how we go about developing internship programs and experiences for students, holistic experience, prepare them well for that future workforce that's needed. So in today's conversation, I look forward to talking about best practices and opportunities to collaborate that can be shared across many organizations and learning from each other on how we might be able to apply those best practices and also discuss the challenges we're facing. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
So can we move to the discussion part? And if I can take initiative to propose a first question, maybe this could address Jania and also Maria, not Denise, but Maria Nadeva. The question would be, what workforce issues exist in the industry? What kind of issues you identify as important in the industry? And a follow-up question would be, how do those issues impact environmental remediation projects that maybe could be more related to Jania? So Jania would like to take the floor to answer this question.
Sure, thank you. So though we've made good strides towards hiring new talent into our workforce at DOE-EM, we continue to be understaffed. So with approximately 44% of our workforce eligible for retirement by 2030, steady hiring tends to be one of our biggest challenges for our organization. We particularly need to see the need in many of our mission critical job series, such as our general engineering area, where we have about 95 vacancies. We have about 35% of our workforce eligible to retire. Our nuclear engineering area, where we have about 56% eligible to retire. Our contracting offices, federal areas, where we have about 27% eligible to retire, and then also our general physical science area, where we have about 45% eligible to retire. So that's a pretty huge lift for us in trying to attack that from that angle. Also, as we continue to make great progress towards our mission to complete our safe cleanup of the environmental legacy brought about from the decades of nuclear weapons development and government-sponsored nuclear research. These workforce management challenges ultimately impact our efforts for the cleanup through schedule delays, cost overruns, workplace incidents, according to our internal DOE assessment that we've done on ourselves. And you may also have seen a recent GAO report that we are currently addressing and working with the GAO on. And a lot of these have been mentioned in that report. So given these challenges, our EM organization, we are committed to improving the workforce management through development of forward-looking workforce plans that include development of comprehensive succession planning for those critical roles that I mentioned and others, and ensuring smooth transitions and minimizing these disruptions throughout the organization. Additionally, this is why programs such as the MSIPP that I showed earlier are very important, because they provide organizations such as ours in EM with direct access to technically capable students who have the potential to cater to our current and workforce needs. So our programs give these students direct hands-on experience towards our EM mission while supporting their scholastic goals. We're able to support their needs as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Maria and Karen, if you allow me, we have organized many training events with the support of DOE in the US, and it was very important to give the opportunity for our member states, participants from member states, to get experience with what you have been doing in the United States. So that's something that I would like to acknowledge. And also the figure you provide, 44% in retirement age, it's pretty much close to what we have in my own country in Brazil. So this is very scaring situation. Yeah. And you gave a pretty good overview of what the consequences that may have. So I will push Maria Najdenova into a more general perspective of the challenges in the nuclear field as a whole, because Maria is not necessarily an expert in environmental remediation. She mentioned about the gender balance, which is one issue to promote women to work in the nuclear field. But Maria, would you be able to address any other concerns in which the workforce development may bring to the nuclear industry as a whole, something that you are already focusing with these programs?
Yeah. Thank you, Horst. As you said, our initiatives or projects are in the area of supporting a diverse workforce with the emphasis on women, because we know that the women only count less than 25% in the STEM-related positions in the nuclear sector, and much less on a leadership level. So we're trying to tackle these issues, and we hear from the industry as a whole, like this shortage of a qualified workforce in all areas, actually. So again, these two initiatives are complementary. One tackles them from the students, from the pipeline, attracting them and supporting them to graduate and enter the nuclear field. And the other one is focusing on the ones who are already in the nuclear field in their early mid-career. And we know that the retention is an issue also, not only the attraction of younger workforce, because the women tend to leave the industry due to kind of obvious reason in the industry, remote places, night shifts, more difficult environment, and so on. So the other one aims at retention and development, so that providing them with some leadership skills, some networking opportunities, as well as advancing the technical skills. So the cohorts we group within a different focus areas, and they visit various facilities within these focus areas. As I said at the beginning, we had two in terms of nuclear power focused, and one on nuclear reactor modeling and simulation, hosted by the Oak Ridge and Idaho National Laboratories. They were all very successful. We hear feedback from the female participants of these LMP visits. They're very happy. Their organizations have were welcoming their participation. They encouraged them, and actually some of them are advancing in their careers, coming back to their organizations. So I think initiatives like that are very beneficial for keeping and building a competent and diverse workforce in nuclear.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Karen, back to you.
Yeah, I'd like to see if any of our other panelists want to help round out this. And I specifically am curious, we've talked internally as a group about how the need for workforce development and developing capacity exists not just with the operators and implementers of remediation, but also in the regulatory environment, in the stakeholder environment. And I don't know, Veronica, you may have some thoughts to share on that based on what you've told me in the past, but I'd love to hear others' input on this overarching question. What are the issues? Where do they exist?
Yeah, and I would definitely say it. One thing we don't necessarily consider, I think we consider our own issues and problems that we're having, with not having succession planning, not having that ability to have overlap when we're bringing in new staff. I definitely can relate to what you were saying, Ginny. I mean, money is not there for staff. But outside of the industry or outside of what I do, and when I'm working on sites, I mean, I've run up a lot of against a lot of issues, stakeholders from tribal perspective. And I think that is one lens that might get overlooked because many times we're doing work on tribal land and we're trying to protect their interests, but we don't necessarily understand what their interests are. So if they don't have the subsequent skills to provide technical input, they too then need to hire contractors. So now, from a contractual perspective, we're all vying for the same entities, right, to help support the work that we're trying to do and the mission that we're trying to achieve. So I've definitely come up against that ceiling many times when we're talking about transportation of waste material. Same thing, being able to find the licensed haulers to be able to haul that material from point A to point B. So it's much bigger than just our little world. So I think just understanding that while we're looking for our own support and what we're trying to build, others are facing those same barriers as well.
Thank you. And sort of a related question from the audience, Gavin Thompson asks, what are your views as a panel on the approaches to building and maintaining capability in the technical organizations? So not just the implementers, the regulators. Now we're also thinking of the technical support organizations. And he asked specifically, what are the pros and cons of approaching matters from a discipline basis, such as geology, hydrology, or a skills basis, such as numerical modeling? And Dave, I actually think you might have, I don't want to put you on the spot necessarily, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And, as somebody who, I'm technically a geologist, but I have developed, a breadth of knowledge in allied fields like engineering, remediation engineering, and, have learned other things as well. So, I think my personal preference is to kind of approach building the bench from a discipline point of view, because I think a multidisciplinary team, you need people with different concepts and fundamental facts that they've been trained in. but then we shouldn't limit people and pigeonhole people based on their disciplines. We should start to look at developing those specific skill sets like modeling or risk assessment or, some type of remediation technology that draws upon a number of different disciplines. So I like having multidisciplinary teams, bringing people from different backgrounds, academic backgrounds, but then not limiting them. Make sure everybody kind of understands what everybody else does, have some knowledge of that. I think it allows the teams to work more effectively together. So that's kind of my take on that question.
Great. Karen, there is another question that is proposed by Philippi Odiamehi, and it's a very interesting question because it states that environmental remediation is a global issue, and he's right about that. Situations can be different, but it's something that has a worldwide perspective. And he asks, what plans or scholarships are available for young professionals in environmental remediation in Africa? And I guess that this question is very suitable for Maria de Lourdes because she just presented Minder, which was essentially something that can contribute to address this particular point, but also she has great experience in working in Africa as well. So Maria de Lourdes, would you like to take this question?
Absolutely. And hi, Philip. As I presented briefly the Minder project, the program is supported by the Erasmus framework under the European Commission. Hopefully it will start in the next academic year. It's already starting at national level in Norway and also in Belgium. But to be covered by the funds from the European Commission, it will have to wait until everyone is ready to start. So hopefully in the next academic year it will be running. And the program covers 2 years with a scholarship for students coming from everywhere, from all over the world. And beside that, the scholarship, the way that Minder is structured, students they must do 1 semester at each full partner, but at the last semester for dissertation, students can be integrated into a research unit or a company or a specific site to develop the research for the dissertation. So from my side and from Minder, we will soon have some kind of scholarships for environmental remediation and decommissioning training and education, reaching also Africa participants, of course.
Great, thank you, Maria, and thank you, David. Karen.
Yeah, and of course, I'd just like to add to, really it's relevant to both what Dave and Maria de Lourdes have just shared, is that we do need discipline-specific expertise. We do need the geologists and the hydrologists and the engineers of the various stripes, but we also need individuals who can integrate across all those disciplines and pull them together to support decision-making and to communicate about the decisions being made so that they can get regulatory approval and stakeholder buy-off, as well as then the funding that's needed. And Maria, I think that's one of the hallmarks of Minder, is the way the curriculum is different from somebody getting a master's in one of those specific science or engineering disciplines. Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Actually, going back to the specificity of the disciplines of the environmental remediation. So we have a multi-faced issue that depends on several factors. And this includes the curriculum, the training opportunities, and also the integration of several disciplines, and also, of course, the alignment with the industry needs, because this is what we are training people. And I can give you 1 or 2 examples. Many programs have increasingly adopt interdisciplinary approaches, combining environmental science, engineering, chemistry, biology, and social science. And this is crucial, of course, that it makes sense because remediation is multidisciplinary, as we all acknowledge, and it requires knowledge from ecological systems, chemical process, regulatory frameworks, and socioeconomic impacts. However, the integration of these disciplines varies a lot. Some programs may still operate within silos, which limits the students' ability to apply the knowledge holistically to real-world problems. So they stay very much at the theoretical approach. And also the depth of the training, of the technical training, specifically in cutting-edge technologies like bioremediation, nanotechnology, and environmental modeling, can be inconsistent across programs. And another example is that many programs recognize that the theoretical knowledge requires practical skills in environmental remediation, but in some countries, particularly in lower income countries or regions with limited access to contaminated sites for study, this can be a limitation. So that's why I think what we created, or what was created with the Minder project, it incorporates more or less all of this, the multidisciplinary approach, the enhanced practical training with field experience, strengthening the industry collaboration with the involvement of the associated partners, foster global collaboration and knowledge exchange, and also incorporates emerging technologies and innovations, and includes ethics, policy, and community engagement. And this couldn't be done with only one institution, that's for sure. So having together this joint master program, I think it's really an asset for the training and education in environmental mediation.
Thank you, Maria. I think we addressed the issue of discipline-specific expertise, how to integrate different disciplines. I believe it was Veronica that mentioned the soft skills as well to be integrated in the portfolio of expertise. I just want to ask Evangelina about another perspective that is very important and has to do with diversity in the workforce. So Evangelina, if you could tell us how does it look like in your organization, the diversity, and can you articulate somehow what can you give as an impact of a diverse workforce in the way the organization develop its activity, and eventually tell us some successful story that you can share with our audience?
Thank you very much, Horace. Yes, so I think one of the things that in framing today's conversation by my colleagues was that many of the workforce issues that were described that impact their environmental remediation field is very consistent with what we're seeing across most of the STEM careers. So many of the challenges exist. One of them being identifying that current and future workforce. And some of the best practices that we have incorporated into helping increase awareness of STEM careers and the needs for filling those workforce needs, like environmental remediation, is really very non-traditional outreach. Janina spoke to some of that in her initial introduction. So typically we have historically focused on Research One universities to identifying that future workforce. And we have really shifted to really expanding our outreach to look at non-Research One institutions, and even looking at technical colleges as a beginning place to introduce the current workforce needs. And helping maybe some of these non-Research One institutions, both community colleges and four-year institutions, help them develop their curriculum and look at modifying maybe some of the curriculum they do offer to incorporate things that would attract students who come from non-traditional backgrounds. For example, incorporating more, again, Janina spoke to, Veronica, everybody has spoken to this in one way or another, incorporating experiential and applied modules into the curriculum. And in some cases, having paid internships incorporated into that university experiences. So what does that look like? Many of our students, if you look at what is happening historically in the United States, we have students who are either needing to work or wanting to work immediately. So that's, again, attracting those students who might not choose to go on to a traditional academic field of study, prepare them for a workforce. And so if we can look at doing things in a different way than we've done in the past and reaching these students with kind of a modified curriculum that incorporates work experience and the academic theory experience, we're able to reach a different, broader group of students. Also, one of the things we've done in terms of an example of a best practice is we work with the Department of Energy. The Workforce Development for Teachers and Science Office is an office of science office. And we helped develop a program primarily tribal and indigenous students, which we did not see historically a large applicant pool of students who were interested in the STEM careers that were important to the Office of Science. And we did not see a large group of applicants. So we saw it as a twofold opportunity space. One is to help bring awareness about what the Department of Energy Office of Science offices and the sponsors were looking at in terms of the technical needs for that workforce, and introduce it in a way that wasn't so overwhelming. I'll come back to that. The second was to develop a new model for the historical 8 to 10 week model of a summer experience, which is it's a model that's used especially in the United States. Quite often students are doing internships in the summer, and there are some academic year models as well, but focusing primarily in the summer. So one of the things we did, and I think one of the colleagues referred to this earlier, is really understanding the communities that you're trying to reach. We went through a listening session with many of our tribal partners in our state, Washington State, where there's 27 federally recognized tribes, and really understanding why the students from those communities were not interested or applying for the Department of Energy internship program. And we learned a lot through that experience, and we took that information and helped inform building this new pilot model. And instead of looking at a 10-week summer internship, one of the things we had heard is, from a culture perspective, some of the reasons that the students were not engaging was that there was many cultural activities that the tribes engage in during the summer. And the idea of leaving their tribal communities and not participating in those really critical cultural activities would be a barrier. And so we looked at two things in developing that pilot model, which is, why don't we consider hybrid? So the students are away from their community and their families on a lot less time than a traditional internship model. And two, how can we develop a model that was more about kind of a phased in approach? So why didn't we look at a 5-week model? Just to introduce them to the Department of Energy and the work that the national laboratories and our sponsors do through the national laboratory system to get them excited and increase awareness. And then, of course, the other, subcomponents of that is ensuring that we had individuals who could understand that culture. So trying to find individuals on our team, scientists on our team, who could relate to the culture of the students that were coming into the internship program, and going to them, not expecting them just to apply through the traditional, like we posted it, comment. We actually went into the communities and had conversations about the importance of the work, not the importance only of the scientific work, but the impact that the scientific work had on the community and the tribal lands around them. And I know Veronica spoke to that as being an important component. So again, I think focusing on that outreach, doing it much differently than we've done before, really understanding the communities that we have not tapped into for that future workforce. There are hidden gems within those communities. We have a super active outreach program to many of our minority servant institutions throughout the United States. Well over 70 minority servant institutions now are represented in our students. That's a significant growth in the last few years, but we had a very purposeful campaign offering assistance to the faculty of the institutions, and because they need to understand also about the opportunities and the workforce needs that we have. If they don't understand it, they can't prepare our students. David spoke to that earlier. And then second, doing some things that are non-traditional in the way we provide experiences for students. So I'm really excited about that. I also don't want to overlook one thing, and it's what David and Maria spoke to. In terms of developing programs and retaining, and I know Maria also spoke to this, retaining the capability that you do get and attract to industry. How do you keep them there and excited about their work? And that's also for us to kind of shift the linear workforce journey that we've had for years and potentially look at more of a lattice approach. Instead of a career climbing approach, the lattice approach looks at opportunities to reskill, upskill some of our current staff, especially in one of our, highest need workforce areas, engineering, which Gina spoke to. If you have somebody who comes in, for example, as an electrician and has, 5 good solid years within an organization, there's an opportunity to offer some upskilling for those individuals as well, that they get to retain and have an income coming in while they're training and developing to potentially becoming an electrician, an engineer or electrical engineer, for example. So I think there's many, and you start to get to the diversity of that workforce as well. And I didn't want to fail to add that to the earlier conversation. I hope I've addressed your.
Right. No, yes, you did. And Karen, there is probably a follow-up question, and thank you, Evangelina, because all this that you described needs funding, and the reality in the US may be one, but we are speaking to a worldwide audience. And there is a question by Trevor Howard that maybe Veronica may wish to address, but it's open to the panel. And he is asking, can the panel provide any examples of novel or innovative approaches to funding for training, development, recruitment, and retention? He says that a lack of funds or insufficient priority being given to workforce development is a problem probably for many countries, and I can endorse what he says, but I would like to listen from the panel, Karen, if you allow me to do that. What is the perspective? Maybe we can start with Veronica, because you mentioned that in your opening remarks, something like that. Would you like to take a go?
Yeah, sure. You definitely have to get creative. Funding's an issue. We don't have necessarily, we've got travel ceilings, so it's hard to even pay for extra training, let alone send staff to training. So I tend to, I just redid our internal SharePoint site, and I was scouring all the tools that I used to use when I was trying to build my knowledge base. So my background is in environmental policy and resource management and risk assessment. So we're talking about that multidisciplinary team. It's layered. We have people that are coming in and then that they have go out. But I'll direct them to sites like Cluin that EPA has. So there's a tremendous amount of information on Cluin. A lot of those are recorded. So if you don't have time during your workday and you want to geek out like I do sometimes, you do it on your own time, you can go through those trainings. And then the other one is IRTC has some training.
Yes.
So there's a number of avenues that are free that we can gear our staff to when we get interns, and if they're interested in, some of the positions that we have. And again, giving them an ability to kind of dip their toe a little bit, because they might not be sure. And that's the other thing I've been seeing lately is I have a farm, so I have a lot of young girls coming through the property, and I'll have moms say, I need you to talk to, they don't know what they want to do, but they're so intrigued with what I do. And I said, okay, it sounds great. I get to play in the dirt and I get to do all these cool things, but is that really something that you're interested in? So they might sit in on calls with me. I might share some projects I'm working on, or gear them towards some of those like free trainings that are available to anybody to just kind of test the waters to see, what their interests might be.
Great. Great, Veronica, thank you very much. So you see a role for e-learning type things to play in this process.
Absolutely.
And I just put a link to the ITRC's homepage, and they have a lot of training events and seminars. They also have a lot of guidance and sort of training modules around the guidance that groups that they've convened have put out on various topics. That's a great resource. I'm just now bringing up the Clue In site, and I'll share that as well. Those are good resources. And I guess I'd like people to think about how we can balance virtual events like seminars and training courses to build capacity and develop capabilities with the need for some real in-person engagement. And how can we leverage one and then sprinkle in a little bit of the in-person? Any thoughts on that? Because I think we've gotten so good at doing virtual events. So how can we leverage what we had to get good at doing in the last few years?
I feel that David is willing to get this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, particularly relevant after coming out of the pandemic, teaching remotely and then going back and teaching in the classroom. I do believe that there is an importance to having that personal outreach. But it's so hard, Veronica, as you said, to miss out on the economic advantages of these virtual opportunities. What we do, and one of our missions is to provide training, and consultation, and most of it gets done remotely. But when we have the opportunity, when we're visiting a site near any of our district offices, we try to stop by and meet in person and offer short little training, like brown bag seminar kind of things in person for the folks. That builds a relationship. And for our group, which is supposed to be a resource to our districts nationwide, building those relationships very important. So I agree, Karen, that it's important to have some aspect of the in-person contact like that. And I mean, even a live, webinar, where you have the opportunity like this to interact with the participants, is better than just a recorded, archived presentation where there's not that opportunity to interact. So, but it's a balance. I would hate to go back to doing nothing but in-person training just because of the expense for everybody.
It becomes prohibitive, and that's then going to shoot ourselves in the foot when we have other approaches we can leverage to keep costs down and increase access. And I'm going to jump back in the chat. There was a question from Douglas Bell, who works with Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. And Douglas's specific question is, are there examples of collaborative initiatives between the US and Canada for knowledge transfer and capacity building? And unfortunately, Douglas, I can't think of specific examples, and we can think harder about that. But thinking of that, and then thinking of this question of how we increase opportunities to bring people together and leverage experiences and sort of get at the cost issue, I'm going to make a shameless plug for the fact that RemPlex hosts these seminars, around 4 per year, and we get pretty good attendance. And then Horst, I know you also host additional virtual events through Environet, and they really both both organizations, I think we do a good job of hitting on different topics and giving people opportunities to share knowledge. And then RemPlex, jointly with IAEA, we host an in-person summit every 2 years, and the next one will be in November of 2025. All of the content from our past summits are available on our websites. But the reason I want to emphasize it is that it's an opportunity to partner with groups to bring those collaborative experiences to happen. And so we try to keep our costs very low, and it's just every other year rather than expecting people to travel every year for such an event. But we just need to think hard about how we can optimize what happens at these organized events to provide those sort of capacity and knowledge transfer opportunities. So I see we've got a couple more questions. There was one question in here that I think it may come back to you, Dave, but others may have ideas on it. And it's from a student, Hannah Fitzpatrick, has asked about how much more preparation will an earth science student need as opposed to a geologist to enter industry? And it has to do with her geology department, I'm not sure what university, having rebranded its earth science department and having separate geology degree paths and earth science degree paths. And absent knowing anything about the specific program at this university, Dave, I'm going to ask you to take a stab at sort of speculating around what the skill set is a person needs to enter the field of remediation, rather than speculating about what that university is doing with its programs. Any thoughts on that? Knowing you offer these courses.
Yeah, that's a good question. And, we have had some similar discussions regarding, say, environmental science versus geology or chemistry or biology. And I'm going to speak just from a personal point of view here. I think that it's perhaps a better path to go into industry if you have a degree that is directly identified with the hard science, like chemistry, biology, geology, or in engineering, for that matter, rather than maybe something like an environmental studies kind of major. That's my personal opinion. I think, though, that's not to say that you wouldn't be perfectly successful and go very far with a degree like an earth science or environmental studies type degree. You just have to be careful with the coursework that you take. With that kind of more general degree, you're going to probably have to have some idea where you're going to be working. Make sure that the electives that you take prepare you specifically for that industry. And I know within our university, the environmental studies program, has different emphasis that they can, different paths that the environmental studies majors can take. I would imagine that with earth science, there's some flexibility in the electives that go with that. You can prepare yourself by taking more practical courses that prepare you for what you would like to do once you leave school. I hope I've answered Hannah's question with that.
Yes, that makes sense. I was just trying to understand a bit more like why this change happened, because they wanted to make it more like broadened and available to students and kind of pique their interest. And I think that like once they bring people into earth science, they might be trying to also switch them over to geology if that's their path. I don't know. It just, I think it's a recruitment choice, but I'm just trying to understand it more because it happened just after I graduated and I'm there for grad school now. So I'm just trying to learn a bit how the industry is influencing education.
Well, just a side note, that for many departments, enrollment, within their courses is important. So anything that can boost the enrollment numbers looks good to management within the university. So, part of it may be just a branding kind of thing. And from an employer point of view, now thinking about, being someone who hires, the title on the degree is maybe not as important as what's on the transcript too. So, if you're called an earth science major, but you have some of what we call the core courses related to geology, stratigraphy, sedimentology, mineralogy, hydrogeology, physical geology, those kind of things. As long as you've got those, I think that's going to be what really counts for those graduates. But I think you might rise to the top of the pile a little bit more, in my opinion, in dealing with my group of people with a hard science, named kind of degree. Anyway, just my take.
If I can,
Veronica has a input there. Yes.
Sorry.
If I could, with
After
what Dave was saying, and in relation to what Hannah was trying to get at, so I come at it from a completely different perspective, where what I'm looking for in someone to build my teams that I work with, I would much more prefer that larger view shed. And it also depends, I think, on what you ultimately want to do. So if geology is in your heart, that's great. You want to work in the remediation field, that's great. But if you want to do more like larger project management, for example, having that larger view shed allows you, because you have a multifaceted skill set, you kind of have a little bit of an understanding of all the disciplines that are needed. So it's looking at it from that 10,000 foot rather than pigeonholing it down low. So from my perspective, it really, and I understand too, young people are having a hard time figuring out really what they want to do today. And that's where that hands-on and mentoring component really comes into play. You might not necessarily find yourself wanting to do hydrogeology the entire time, but you love the idea of, I call it the whirlwind, where you like the chaos and putting together the teams and working on the projects from a much larger scale. So you can still develop those other skill sets. You might not necessarily have a degree in it, but I can write a sampling and analysis plan. I can go out and work on a drill rig and take samples. My degree's not in that, but I have the skill set to do that work. So this, again, coming from my perspective, rather than the education piece, and just broadening that lens. So folks, I would just hate to see someone get pigeonholed, because I think that's the only path they go down when it's so really broad-based, especially within the federal government. I mean, there's so many avenues, and we tend to not, you must have that degree. So it's keeping an open mind, I guess, is what I would say. So I appreciate your lens, Dave, where you were coming from, and then just offering up from my perspective and how I kind of came up through the field.
Thank you so much.
Right.
It's great to hear.
I'm going to jump back and just share something from the chat, Horst, if you don't mind, then I'll let you go next. But Paul Armani wrote in response to the discussion of, have there been some collaborative opportunities between Canadian and US counterparts, and he mentions in the chat a decommissioning team from White Shell Lab in Manitoba was able to visit the West Valley demonstration site in the US, and White Shell was moving from operations to D&D mindset, and was able to visit the West Valley demonstration site to see how things had been handled there. And those types of site visits are a really good example. I think we need to always be on the lookout for those types of collaborative exchanges. It's a good one-off example, and I think a challenge is how do we create more of those for broader groups of people. But thank you, Paul, for sharing that. And Horst, over to you. Anything you want to tackle next?
Yes, there is a comment by Felipe, and he thanks for raising the issue of environmental science and how he says that respect to the impact of environmental remediation in social sciences. I would say that it's maybe the opposite, in which way social sciences are improving the way we work in terms of environmental remediation, because we learn that it's not only about technical solutions, but thinking about sustainability. For example, the three pillars of sustainability: environment, economy, and social. So it's about to integrate social in the way we do, and that requires quite of good understanding of different aspects. But that brings me to another component, because, as you know, Karen, we are putting focus on artificial intelligence to be a tool that can help us to make decisions. And I would like to insist that we are not thinking about artificial intelligence replacing us as a decision maker, but to help us in examining complex scenarios, complex situations. And then my question to the panel is, in which way can we integrate artificial intelligence in our efforts to develop workforce? And I just want to mention that last week we were working in a project within the IAEA, is a portal for environmental remediation, and we made use of artificial intelligence to develop the work, and it was impressive the way the work was able to flow with the use of the tool. It was really surprising. So I think it's a reality. And the question is, how can we deal with that reality? How we can make best use of that reality? And I would believe that it has to happen already in the process of forming the professionals that will be working not only in environmental remediation, but in any other area. Anybody in the panel would like to comment on that?
Can offer one piece, and I think Jania will understand it also. When it comes to the federal government, it's very difficult for us to branch into something new like
I was just going to
AI.
add that, yes.
Yeah, so it's like, while we could find it is a great tool, sometimes we're bootstrapped by our own selves. So, from a federal government perspective, we're a little ways away from being able, at least from my entity, of being able to utilize AI.
And I'll add to that, I agree totally, Veronica. And I know that our organizations are exploring how we can do that. But, you have the red tape and we have to do things in such a way. But we're of the benefit in which we can rely on our contractors and, those who aren't so restricted to do that. And our institutions that do research for us. We have large components of AI embedded in that research and our capabilities. So we are leveraging that in ways that we aren't able to do ourselves in the federal government.
Thank you.
I would just add that when we're talking about, identifying critical power skills, formerly known as the soft skills for our future workforce, that technology adoption and AI is definitely something that this generation is coming to the workforce with the knowledge. And so in many ways, that is a key component of our future workforce. And I know that David and Mia and others who helped develop curriculum from an academic setting are looking at incorporating modules about the use of technology in technical skill areas that we've not done in the past. And I think that that's an opportunity to start helping inform our agencies and industries of how this workforce from, the Generation Z can come in with more experience and knowledge on how AI can be a useful tool in the environmental remediation careers.
Thank you.
So Horst, if I can, sorry, someone else in the panel comment?
Yeah, Karen, I was to this, Dave. I just wanted to weigh in a little bit. I have been advocating using some of the AI tools like ChatGPT within our group, within the Center of Expertise, to help us on our consultation and answering questions for people. I see some potential use in maybe streamlining some of the work that we do, particularly in our quality assurance reviews of documents. It offers some benefits with some risks, and that I feel a little strange being probably the oldest employee in our group that's advocating for the AI consideration, and the younger folks are being a little bit more tentative about it. But I see some advantages. One thing I'll say is that, a lot of the material that some of these large language model AI tools like ChatGPT have been trained on are government issued guidance documents. And so, something like ChatGPT can be a quick way to sort of distill information from a number of different environmental protection agency or DOE or, other agency guidance documents. So anyway, just want to throw that out there.
Oh, that's a great perspective.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Horst, we have about 4 minutes left, and there is one last question, I believe, in the chat, and it comes from Dr. Gupta, and actually 2 questions. One about community engagement as a tool in remediation strategy, and then the second part of the question is, are we putting the same amount of effort into preventative measures? And I think that refers to preventing the need for additional remediation. Absolutely. And I think those are both very good questions, but I'm going to stick first with the one on community engagement as a tool in remediation strategies and link it back to this conversation of capacity development. And I think I made the comment early on, we've focused very much on our workforce development, but in parallel, across organizations, so the implementing organization, the regulating, the technical support groups in the research environment. But I think it's also equally important that we're building the capacity among our stakeholder communities so that they can engage in meaningful ways in providing input on decisions at remediation projects. And we just have a couple minutes, but I didn't know if anybody wanted to provide any insights on that and how we can do a better job in terms of building that capacity among our stakeholders. It's a loaded question. Veronica, you want to try?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because community engagement is an incredibly important piece of all of the work that I do. So every project has a, community involvement plan or a community engagement plan. And I try, at least in the projects that I'm involved in, to do as much outreach as I can. EJ or environmental justice has been a very big component, within the federal government. So understanding if we have EJ communities in, nearby areas, and then how do you go and communicate? And I think Evangelina, maybe it was you said that, or maybe Maria, where we can't expect people to come. Like, I don't know who you are and that you want to come to my house. So it's better to go to the population to have those conversations, go where they are, where they're most comfortable, and just making things as understandable as you possibly can. Now, that's very difficult on my RAD sites because when you start talking about alpha, beta, gamma, people kind of glaze over. So it's the topics to themselves have to be presented in such a manner that makes it digestible for the community and not so over the top that they don't feel like they can have a voice. So I can't stress enough about the community engagement proponent, but that goes in developing, again, those soft skills. Not everybody is going to be, in a position to have those conversations. It's definitely a unique skill set.
And I'm just going to say I love the term power skills. So Evangelina, I'm going to evoke that every chance I get, because I think that's a great way of taking a different look at what those skill sets are. But yeah, Evangelina, anything to add on that? Or
yeah, I would just add to Veronica's comment because I agree with everything she said. That, I mean, the theme is really collaboration, and so communication and collaboration always results in better outcomes. And even as communities are looking to solve issues around workforce or impact to the community, that having, more of the community interaction to understand what's happening and build capacity for that community needs. That could be with your economic development, it could be with your local government agencies, it could be with your nonprofit, it could be with your higher education or your K-12 preparatory programs if you're a country. I think that having those proactive communications will result in the collaboration to have a better impact.
Great. I think we're right at the end of our time together, and I think we could go on and on, but because I'm I feel like we're just now starting to get into some really interesting aspects of this. But Horst, before I turn it over to you, I just want to thank everybody, all of our panelists. I appreciate your efforts in preparing for this and then being here with us today and the great discussion. And to all of our attendees, we will be posting a recording of this on the RemPlex and Environet websites. And as you leave the meeting, you'll be invited to answer a short survey. We appreciate your time doing that. And we'll be sending out information soon about future events. And Horst, I'd like to turn it over to you for some closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Thank you to all the participants, the panelists, but also the attendees. I just want to make a special thank to Maria Naidenova for jumping in at the last minute to cover for Gloria. So thank you very much, Maria. And I think that it's very important to keep these partnerships between IAEA and PNNL, because even before, when we were working with Aragon National Laboratory as well, we were able to provide a lot of good opportunities for training. And we still do that with PNNL right now and many other partners. And we try to address all sorts of countries all over the world with a very big portfolio of activities and trainings. And I could see some of the students or participants in our training attending the webinar today. And I want to believe that we were able to foster to improve their careers, to prompt their careers with the kind of things we were able to share. So with that said, it was really great discussion, and hoping to get new webinars that we can discuss very relevant themes like this one. So thank you all so very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
We come to the room now.
We can just hang on here a minute, and
Yeah.
people are disengaging. So, and thank you again, Dave. Were you able to give your email to Philip?
I was frantically there at the end trying to find a way to direct message him